Thank you. So we will start with our first speaker, and our first speaker is Sir Robin Knox Johnston. Joshua Slocum was the first person to set a solo circumnavigation of the world. He did that in 1898, and it took him 3 years and 2 months. Since that time, 7,296 people have climbed the Mount Everest, 1,848 sailors have sailed around the Cape Horn, and just 643 people went into space. So if you think that going into space is special, just less than 200 people have sailed single-handed around the Horn. And Charlie Dallin was number 194 during the 2025 Vendée Globe. So back in 1969, Sir Robin Knox Johnston was the first one to win a single-handed race around the globe. And what a great honor to have him here, that legend of our time. But he's not a man who lives in the past. He's got a clear future of where a clear vision of where the future of ocean sailing lies. So with that, Sir Robin, the floor is yours.
That's the zapper. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'll start off by showing you where I like to be. That's how I started life, age 17, in the Merchant Navy. And that's where I learned my seamanship. Best training I could possibly have had. And that's Suheli being built in India when I was based out there. 30mm thick planks, teak. There's 6 tons of teak in my boat. And the decks are the same thickness. And as someone once said, if Suheli hits Britain, I'm sorry for Britain. But I've still got her. In fact, I could sail her in 20 minutes. She's rather dear to me. But we built her in India. I was based out there. And that's the Indian method of building. It's quite different to us. I used to run a boatyard, Port Hamble, and it was totally different. But they had their own way of doing it, and it was effective. And she's still in one piece, so not complaining. And there she is, coming in towards the finish of the Round the World race. This was set up by the Sunday Times, and I think 9 of us entered. I was already planning it. I was first officer on a passenger ship at the time. And I'd built Suheli, sailed her home from India via the Cape of Good Hope. And I'd seen Chichester, Francis Chichester, go around the world with one stop. I thought there's one thing left to do, and let's go non-stop. Now, obviously you need money for it, but it's very hard to raise sponsorship when you're sailing between Britain and Mombasa. So I was totally unsuccessful, except I did get a £5 voucher from Cadbury's, which didn't get me very far, but much more usefully, 120 cans of beer from Tennant's. So I set off. They didn't give me any chance. I was unknown in Britain. I'd done all my sailing out in the Indian Ocean up to then, and so no one knew who I was. Getting sponsorship, almost impossible. Trying to persuade people that sailing twice the distance anyone's ever sailed before, single-handed, non-stop, was almost impossible. And I remember a chap coming up to me and saying, "You this Johnny who thinks he's going to sail single-handed, non-stop round the world." And I said, "Well, I'm going to try." He said, "Well, it can't be done. In any case, you couldn't do it." And I thought, that's a terribly stupid remark. You've never met me before. How do you know I can't do it? And I'm sure he went back to his club and said, "I told that whippersnapper." Didn't know what he was doing. And I bet you 12 months later he said, "Of course I gave him advice before he left." But there's your dear little thing, tough as hell, very seaworthy, doesn't like going to windward, and neither does her owner. This is the finish.
This really must be a tremendous moment for a man who's obviously loving every second of today's sail. Because there is the man of the day here at Falmouth. Any second now, the black rock beacon stretching out across the water from Tendennis Point will come into view just on the left of your picture. And the cannon is gone. The cannon has gone. The hooters, the horns, the salute. Day 312, about 3 on April the 22nd. and Robin Knox Johnston and Sue Haley have sailed non-stop around the world.
I could have finished at 9 in the morning, but they came up to me and said, "What time are you going to finish?" I said, 9 o'clock. They said, "Do you mind slowing down?" I said, "What?" And I've been at sea for 312 days. I want a pint of beer, a steak, because I hadn't chewed anything for 10 and a half months, and a bath in that order. They said, "No, look, the mayor and mayoress are going to meet you, and the mayoress has got a hair appointment at 9 o'clock. So I slowed down, the wind changed, and I didn't get across the finish line until 20 past 3, by which time the poor dear's hairstyle was ruined anyway, so it didn't make any difference. A lot of funny stories, and I could go on about them, but I won't. But that was really when I began to sail in the UK. But up to then, apart from sailing back from India, I'd never sailed in the UK. I didn't understand the establishment of yachting in Britain. I'd been away at sea all my life, so it was all new to me. Well, one of my subsequent jobs, I became president of the Sail Training Association. And as you know, we run the tall ships races. I mean, the first time I went to Finland was Mariehamn when we took the tall ships there. Had a huge problem with Finland because our races were sponsored by Cutty-Sark whiskey. So we had to cover it all up because you don't allow advertising of liquor. And we had these two ships, the Winston Churchill and Malcolm Miller, and they were falling apart. And it was becoming impossible to budget for their maintenance. So I decided we better get two new ships. And those are the two brigs I built. Hulls I found in Germany, result of a fiddle. European clerk, EU clerk found it. And I brought them over to Britain and finished them off. I raised 11 million to build those two ships. And I'm never doing that again. But when you gather that one of them is called Prince William, for obvious reasons, and the other's called Stavros Niarchos, you get some idea of where I got some of the money from. But that was a great time, and what I loved about that was all the young people we used to get in the square riggers and all the sail training ships, and you watch them develop. It's a fabulous sight. They do change, just a fortnight, you know. It just instills confidence in them, and it's just wonderful to see, especially as it's so international. A great place. I had to leave because my wife got cancer, but I did enjoy it, particularly the youngsters. Well, then I decided we'd do get a bit more adventurous, and that's Greenland. I went up there with a British climber called Chris Bonington, and we sailed up there in Sue Haley. And as you can see, it's rather like being a toothpick in a gin and tonic with an awful lot of ice. But we managed to get through this ice. It's not easy, but Sue Haley's tough. We had no trouble. And we went mountaineering, which was a new sport to me, and in my view, thoroughly foolhardy. It's bloody dangerous. Sailing around the world's simple in comparison. And this is another time I went up there with Chris. And we're working our way through the ice slowly. Put hands up if you've been to Greenland. 1. It's magic. I'm going there again this summer. I just hope I don't have to get a bloody American visa to go there. But you can see that you're going through these flows. Now, you've got to watch them because they stick out more underwater. And they're floating rock. They'll cut a boat into... Well, you live in Finland, you're used to it. But where I come from, south of England, we're not.
Yeah, how much to starboard?
On the other hand, this year will be my 6th visit, so I'm getting better at it.
60 to 80, roger. See the gap.
But I keep someone up the mast to look for the leads, to work their way through. But isn't it grand? Just look at it. I suppose for you Finns it's not abnormal, but for most of us it is. Two things to remember. 1, don't go too fast. And 2, never put your engine astern. That's when you drag the ice into the prop and damage it. Now, I show you that. It's not often you catch an iceberg when it's melted sufficiently for its buoyancy to change. And I show it to people to say, and that is why you don't go close to icebergs. Because when these things start to go, if they're big ones, and they can be extremely large, if they start going, you'll just get your boat crushed. So it's a little bit foolhardy. But look at the amount of movement on that. Anyway, I'm entranced with the place. This is when we realized we couldn't get... We're going to Kangerlussuaq, which is halfway between Kusluk and Scoresby Sound. And we just couldn't get through the ice. There's Chris.
And I go along with it very definitely. I just don't think we're going to get through too much.
So we had to turn around and come back out and indulge in what we call ice jousting to push our way through. There we are. I found the best thing is just put the bow gently on a floe and go very slow ahead and use the floe as the battering ram. And it just pushes stuff out the way and you don't get damaged. I took the Malcolm Miller up to Spitsbergen and it took us 24 hours to cover 12 miles. I just did it under square sails, just gently moving at half a knot. No damage, but take it easy. Bloody dangerous. Anyway, so that was, I think, my second or third trip to Greenland. And then in the 70s, I've been racing Admiral's Cup and stuff in the British team. I got into multi-hulls. And this was my first one, a 70-foot multi-hull built by Reg White. And you can see who the sponsor was. And this is taken at Portland Race Week. We got up to 32 knots. But we started to buckle the mast, so we thought we'd better stop. She was quite a heavy boat for the time, but she was very quick. And we raced Manoreva around Britain. Alan Colas had been Eric Tarbell's boat. And we beat him by 2 days. But he had too much weight in his boat. We actually loaned him a van to take weight out of his boat to make him more competitive, because it's nice to race. And then later on, Peter Blake and I went and did the Jules Verne. This is a brilliant French concept. They've got the romance of the sea worked out. And the French government presented a trophy, Jules Verne Trophy, for the first boat to get round the world in under 80 days. Great concept. So we entered. And the first time we hauled something in the Southern Ocean, had to pull out, Bruno Perron actually bust it by about 3 hours. Brilliant effort. And then we had another go at it. This is our second attempt.
That's 517.2 miles, 1300 and 1300, which we're using as noon. That's our 6th day. Our average speed of 21.55 knots over the last 24 hours. And this means that we've now averaged 19.05 knots. 19.05 knots for 6 solid days. It's just unbelievable.
Yet even now, in weather to make most yachties head for home, this boat's doing close to the suburban speed limit.
Durban Radio, yacht Enza, New Zealand. Enza, New Zealand, calling Durban Radio. Do you read over? Information we have of Lyonnaise was this morning, and at that time she was some 1,300 miles behind us. Over. For the last 3 or 4 days we've had some quite rough weather. Winds up to 45 knots. And very big seas, which of course are a feature of the Southern Ocean. And in the centre section where Peter Blake and I live, we get thrown out of our bunks quite frequently, whereas the others in the hull say that the noise is just like a tube train, it's just indescribable. Over. Tomorrow with light will pass New Zealand the halfway point. 35 days to get halfway around the world. There's no sailing boat has ever gone this fast in all of history. It's quite incredible progress.
Down here, every chore is done in a fridge with a hose on. The sea temperature, an unsurvivable 1 to 4 degrees above freezing. And the ice, is yet to come.
We had a peculiar weather system in the Pacific. We had to head right down below 60 degrees to get favourable winds, but they weren't awfully strong. We were racing against a very good French sailor called Olivier de Kersauson. And at this time, he was quite a long way behind us. But because of the system we got in the Pacific, we got bad winds, he got good winds, and he caught right up with us. He was only about 200-300 miles behind us at Cape Horn. But then he went close into the land and we didn't. We managed to create a barrier.
For the skippers, there's a hard decision to make. Lyonnaise is catching up. De Kersauson missed the ice, the storms, the light airs. Now Robin and Peter are sailing way out to the east, staying with the clipper wind. There's a strong chance that Lyonnaise could cut through behind them on the inside, and then scoot up the coast of Argentina and cut them off.
Let's say he's going to come up here. Let's say he's aiming at
Odds are, law of averages says we get a more favourable wind at some stage when we come through it. Suddenly yesterday the seawater temperature rose from about 8 degrees to 19 degrees. Today it's been sunny, the wind's disappeared however, which is not good news, but it's a lovely sunny day. Everyone's getting washed for the first time for an awful long time, over.
For Peter Blake, it had been 40 days.
$1,700 miles from the finish, and we've got 10 days to do it. Should be a shoe-in for a boat like this, capable of 20 knots. That's only asking us to do 7.5 knots, but we need the wind. After 7 days, Lyonnaise has broken her silence and come up with a position at last. It's not good news for her, though. She's increased the distance between us. She's even further behind. She was just over 400 miles behind at the equator. She's now 600 miles. A complete fastnet race behind us.
As she enters the English Channel, Enza New Zealand is still towing her drogue. It's perhaps the first time ever that a world speed record is set by a boat towing an anchor. On the 1st of April 1994, Enza New Zealand crossed the finish line at Ushant Lighthouse 2 days ahead of Lyonnaise to take the Jules Verne Trophy. Her average distance travelled was an incredible 654 kilometres per day. In 74 days, 22 hours and 17 minutes, the biggest racing cat in the world averaged 27 kilometres an hour right around the globe.
Well, now that record's down to 41 days, 31 years later. We're still the only non-French to have ever won the Jules Verne Trophy. But our greeting, we finished in Brest. They gave us a fabulous reception. And Olivier turned up about 2 days later. We went down, and they cheered us all the way down. And I'd known Olivier for years. I jumped on board and said, "Congratulations, Olivier." And he said, "Robin, I hate you." And the press got us laughing. It's a great event, and it still, of course, is going on. And it will continue to go on. There's a fabulous trophy in the museum in Paris, which floats in the air, magnetically held up. And they quite rightly keep it there. But everyone's going to keep going for this record, which I think is such a brilliant concept in the first place. Great fun to do, too. Sailing those boats, honestly. 480 miles a day for 10 days. It was just unbelievable. And at night, it's like being on a tray. You can't see a thing, and you're just screaming along at high speed and saying, "I hope there's nothing in the way." Well, then a couple of people told me I was too old to sail around the world again. I was only 68. They were named Golding and Thompson. And I said, "Bloody bastards." Right. So I put an offer in for this mocha boat, and a ridiculously low offer, and went to sea on a boat giving lectures. Next thing, I get a message from Bernard Gallier, who was handling it, saying, "Your offer has been accepted." And I thought, oh, God, what have I done now? Anyway, she's a lovely little boat, and I did the Velux race around the world, 06, 07 in her. Neither Golding nor Thompson finished. And I keep saying to them, "I beat you." They said, "No, we were in front of you." I said, "When you run the 1,500 meters 4 times around a track, and you pull out on the 3rd lap, you've lost, right? So you have lost." It was great fun. Trouble is, I got the weather forecast wrong, and we ran straight into a gale. That's Bernard Stamm, delightful Swiss. And I was sat actually further offshore. And he got through without damage, but 3 of us had a bit of damage. I had to go into Corunna and repair the track on the mainsail. But it was a great experience, and I loved it. There's another picture of it. You can see what the waves are like. You don't try and race in that, although actually he's put up a bit more mainsail there. Typical Bernard. Yeah. Great guy. And then I decided there must be loads of people out in the world who'd love to sail around the world, but don't have the confidence to do it, or if they've got a boat, or can't afford a boat. So I started Clipper Ventures. I thought of the idea in Greenland, actually, with Chris, when he told me how much it cost to climb Mount Everest. And I worked out if I bought the boats, provided the skippers and food and everything else, I could probably do it for half. So we put an advert in the paper and got 8,000 responses. So I set up Clipper Ventures, and that's my current fleet, about to start building a new one. Be our 4th fleet. Next race will be our 14th. We've now treated 7,000 people to at least an ocean crossing, 40% of whom have never been on a boat before. They're the easiest to train because they've got no bad habits. And about 30% are ladies. And we just mix them up and then get on with it. They build up tremendous friendships. So we're still busy doing that. And this was fun. That's Afghanistan. You might have guessed. And I'm with a chap called Ranulph Fiennes. And we got into a bit of trouble with the BBC because we escaped their security. Went to try and buy a Martini Henry rifle, and they weren't very pleased. But we refused to go down to Kandahar unless we were armed. And the BBC said, "You can't be armed." Well, we're not going then. So just as we left, Ran and I had an AK-47 and 5 magazines under our seats, at which point we felt very happy. And that's Afghanistan again, with the border police who are looking after us. Nice bunch, good bunch of people. And then we went round Cape Horn. I thought Ran had died, he was being seasick. And John took us to Afghanistan, Ran took us to the Canadian Arctic, and I took him around Cape Horn. We made a series of films of it. Huge fun, we got on so well together. And that's coming up towards Cape Horn. And there is Cape Horn. And that is the memorial to all the seamen who've died at the actual point. We got a nice calm day there. The only thing is, when you go ashore in Cape Horn, it's run by, the lighthouse is run by a petty officer of the Chilean Navy. Always take fresh fruit and fresh meat, because he only gets replenished every 6 months. And he says, stick to the paths, because the rest of the island's mined, because they're frightened the Argentines might invade. So you stick to the paths. Great fun, though. Great place. And this was the Arctic with Ran. Totally uncontrollable dogs for the first 10 minutes, and then they come under control. Huge fun. And then someone challenged me to do a powerboat race. That's crazy. Why did I do that? Well, we won our class, and we came 5th overall, and we were the smallest horsepower. These powerboat people don't navigate. They just use throttles.